Oh, Robbie, you wrote a moving piece about your personal experiences with anxiety and depression. What actually prompted you to go ahead and write that piece?
Um, I found writing as an outlet, when I was going through those hard times. So it wasn't necessarily at first to share. I wrote different things, journal entries, like poems, things like that, and um, I think kind of as a closing piece to really, I don't know, kind of like be over the hump, I guess, was just like to write out my whole story. And I guess that's kind of where it came from.
You wrote about some of the challenges that you had between your freshman and your sophomore seasons. What was it that was happening that you realized something was wrong?
Well, I didn't notice for a couple weeks or even more that something was off. I just kind of was going through the motions, Athletes, anybody, you get tired, you don't want to do things, it happens, but it was unusual, something I never experienced before. The lack of motivation and just really not wanting to do anything at all. Even basketball is something that I loved, and put like my whole life into. And eventually I think I just broke down and started crying. And I just admitted to a friend that I hated playing basketball, and I was hating my experience right now, and nothing I did was enjoyable for me. And that's kind of where I really started kind of expressing my feelings.
In your particular situation, you knew something was wrong. You were aware of that. How was the process of reaching out to someone, just saying, "Hey, I need help"? What was that like?
It was definitely difficult, especially growing up. I always like to be tough and uh, not letting things bother me, like physically and mentally, And I think it was our trainer. I mean, she's around us all the time. She could tell that something was off, and kind of encouraged me to see our team doctor. And even when our team doctor wanted me to go see a counselor, I was like, like thanks, but I don't really feel like going. But luckily, she forced me to go, or else I wouldn't end up going. And I think that's something that's really challenging. Is even if you know something's off, is finding even the motivation to go help yourself.
Yeah.
And that's why it's so important to have people around you that care about you. And that's why I was so lucky to be at ASU while experiencing these things. So I had all that support system to help me get help.
Have you reflected at all on what it would have been like or where you would be right now had you not asked for help?
Yeah, I don't really know where I'd be, or even if I'd actually be sitting here talking to you, to be honest. That's how bad mental health can get, especially if you're facing it by yourself. And when I first posted my story, that's kind of something I hinted at was, we're used to facing struggles alone, so let's start facing them together, because that's kind of the center point of mental health, is not being alone. Having those people that care and support about you. And that's something I've learned through my experience. It has helped me really have empathy towards others who are struggling. And I've had friends and teammates who, have been down before. And so that's what I really have taken most from this experience is kind of the want and like the need I feel to help others that are struggling with the same thing. So.
What would your advice be to someone who is trying to do their social duty, right? Staying
Mhm.
indoors because of COVID-19, but at the same time struggling with anxiety surrounding, their personal lives?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, personally, some things I did. I mean, you can still be social distancing, but you can still get outside. I think getting outside is a great way to clear your mind, and get that sun, get the vitamin D. Physical activity always helps, and we have such great technology with FaceTime and Zoom calls, things like that. Keep reaching out to friends and family, and just activities. I've been doing puzzles with my roommates and stuff like that. Anything to keep you busy. And I think routines and schedules are important, even though it'll be different from your everyday routine when people used to go out. But yeah, that's another thing I think is a huge takeaway. Is I don't think people realize that being alone and being kind of in isolation, like the whole world is right now, or almost coming out. But some people go through that on a normal basis. Like they don't have the friends and family, or
Yeah.
they don't have those connections. So um, just like being mindful when we come out of quarantine that, you know, some people might still be in quarantine. So that's an important thing I think that we need to take away as kind of population, is to always reach out to others.
Robbi, you have one of the best coaches in the entire country and certainly in the conference in Charlie Turner Thorne. How do you think she's been not only an advocate for you as a player, but sort of encourage you to go public and be supportive of some of the things that you've been dealing with?
Yeah, no, I've been so grateful to have Charlie in my life. I mean, even from day one, when you step foot on this campus, she preaches how she cares more about us as people than as players, and that's 100% true. She does so much for us to build us as great women, and she always wants us to keep developing into young leaders who will affect whatever community they go out into. And so I think that's something that kind of sat with me. And you know, I want to be a difference maker, and I want to help those around me. So that's probably has played into me sharing my story.